Hello friends, and welcome to another figure study where we're looking at, yes, this thing. This thing being the Pose Plus metal version of GaoGaiGar. So the short version of why I have this and wanted this when I didn't really mention it before is when I first got back into collecting about five-ish, a little more than 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago at this point. Vangelis was one of the channels that I found, and I watched his video of the Soul Chigoken GaoGaiGar, and that looked like a really cool set and a really cool figure that at the time they hadn't done any reissues of, or at least no recent reissues, so it was like $500 to $600 to get your hands on that thing, and I'd just gotten back into collecting and could not justify that kind of an expense on a figure because, I just started collecting. That was like an unheard of amount of money to spend on a toy for me. So I just kind of looked at it from afar, but kept thinking I'd really, really love to get my hands on a transforming GaoGaiGar set at some point. And then this came out and I was just like, yes, that's the one. Because this set is absolutely not screen accurate. The transformation is not a perfect transformation. I completely understand why people who are fans of the show and the overall design would want it to be super accurate. But, I feel like the Soul Chigoken fills that purpose. So I'm fine with that, and I just really love the aesthetic on this set specifically. And I don't have that much of an attachment to the show to really have any real investment in how accurate it is or isn't. That said, it is obviously still GaoGaiGar, with Liner Gao, Drill Gao, Stealth Gao, and Galeon. These are very identifiable as those whatever you want to call them, but also very stylized. But yeah, I really love the aesthetic on this, and this set is expensive and there's a lot to go over, so I'm going to stop rambling and we are going to start off with Liner Gao, because it is basically just a stick. I think it's supposed to be like a, Shinkansen style train, bullet train, and this is obviously very stylized, very futuristic looking, very kind of sci-fi sleek. Certainly not show accurate and also not real world accurate, but I don't care. I think it's a pretty cool looking train. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't do anything. It's just a stick. It doesn't even have wheels. The wheels that it has are just molded plastic, and there's just junk underneath for the transformation, but it still looks cool. And I like that they managed to manufacture it in a way that you don't get screw holes on either side. Again, it's got this kind of like highly stylized look to it, with all of these lines just going all throughout these very, very stylized looking futury windows in translucent blue, which may have silver behind them. I don't know for sure. And of course the head of the train. I like this kind of spade design, like the way this just kind of, instead of tapering down, it kind of comes down, then juts in, and then a little bit more juts out. Something very aggressive about that shape. And along the top, we've got some more detail as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Liner Gao, so I'm going to put this off to the side and bring in Drill Gao, which is a dual drill tank. And this thing is probably the most ridiculous looking vehicle of the set. I mean, it looks good. I really like the glossy finish that they gave this, and there's some really, really nice detailing throughout this whole thing, with the gold vents and the greens. It's really nice green painted details inside the treads, little cockpit sections up top there. Yeah, not accurate at all. Not even really functional. Like, you can spin the drills manually, but it doesn't really do much. But still, it's a decent looking dual drill tank that is also obviously two big legs. Again, it looks good, and the detailing, I'm going to say this a lot, but the detailing on this and the set in general is incredible. It's also worth noting that Drill Gao is very weighty, because a whole bunch of die-cast is back here. I just gotta say, this thing looks great. The colors are great, the detailing's great, the gold and the green and the red pop really nice on this really glossy black, and love the look of this whole set. It's so nice. Anyway, moving right along here, we have Stealth Gao, and Stealth Gao I have on the little stand, and the stand even has the logo on it. It's a very simple stand, but it's a way to keep Stealth Gao off the ground, so you're not just putting all of that weight down on these bits down here. This is a metal bar, and the bar just kind of sticks into this rectangular shaped slot at the bottom of Stealth Gao, and it holds on pretty well. Like, you can see it's not coming out. I wonder if it'll... Yeah, okay. Holds in pretty well. And yeah, Stealth Gao is also gorgeous. it's again like Drill Gao, black and red primarily, but got little hits of that green and gold in a few places. The underside is a bit of a mess, though less of a mess than some versions, because there's this panel that goes over the bottom here to kind of cover up the combine mode head. But you do have bits of Robot Lion main extension on the bottom. Actually, I'm going to take this stand out real quick. So yeah, there you can see the square slot that the stand just pegs into. And this thing is also covered in details with the paint and the translucent plastic. Lots and lots of molded details, a nice clean bottom if you have the plate in place. More stuff going on up top, along with the raised and painted logo, and the windows and some intakes here. Though the intakes, it's weird. There are these flaps on the back here. I'm going to show it now because this is just going to be easier, but you can actually angle these flaps up and reveal some detail. And it works for the combine mode for doing, I think it's the Hell in Heaven attack. You can open up the vents for that. In this mode, I guess it would work more as like flaps or air brakes maybe. But the detail's there and it does move. Oh, and also even there's like little bits of gold under there. There's just so much detail in here. So this thing can separate in several different places too. Like you can separate this bit and reveal this kind of green and gold circuitry detail. You can pull out this bit a little bit and reveal some gold. You get moving flaps on the wings. This thing is just, it's very, very neat. I guess it's probably my favorite, my second favorite. Well, no, it's my favorite of the Gao machines. Galeon is my favorite piece of the individual set because it actually does stuff. But this looks really, really good. It is that kind of flying wing shape with all the nice details, but like they pushed it a little bit further. They added some angles to it where maybe there weren't angles before, and I just really, really like that. Plug this back in here so you can see this plugs in there and holds in with friction, and it does hold in. Once that's plugged in, then Stealth Gao can fly. All right, let's get this out of the way and move on to Galeon. And Galeon is a robot lion, and this thing is a little bit awkward looking in places. I mean, how could it not be given everything it has to do and just the general design? But this is a pretty darn great robot lion, all things considered. Like, yeah, you can see the fists down there, but I feel like that's just part of the design. Same thing with the back end here, how you've got the robot hips just obviously jutting out back here, and it's a little bit awkward, but like it works, and it works because that is the design. I also, again, really like how they just angled everything more. And Galeon stands out in the fact that he is primarily white with some black and some gold. So like the black and gold and green and red ties into most of the other Gao machines, except Liner Gao. But he still stands out, and like this shift in the prominence of the colors does set him apart. You do have that very, I feel like this is still obviously a Galeon head, even if it is stylized. And they did a lot of really nice paintwork in here with the gold for the face, metallic green for the eyes, the silver for the fangs, the gunmetal for the nose, even this little painted detail right on top of the head there. And the mouth does open, revealing more silver teeth and kind of a gunmetal-y inside there. So you can open and close the mouth, but like the way this guy comes together, you also even get some nice posability. Like the head can turn side to side and look up and down a bit. This main bit kind of plugs into the back of the head, but if you disconnect that, you can also get some tilt and control the look of the head even more. Moving on to the rest of the articulation, I guess, since we're already talking about that. The forearms, forelegs, whatever, can go in and out. I'm gonna just kind of gloss over the articulation because this is very, like, a lot of this is what we see in the robot mode, but you get these elbows, I guess, in the front here that can bend about 90 degrees. They look double jointed, and they are, but they're double jointed going in this direction, because this right here is the robot arm bending backwards. So it's not a full double joint going this way, but that's fine. You get a little bit of a tilt here, and this does actually rotate. It doesn't tilt is the thing, really. And then the claws, paws, whatever, you can adjust the angle on these if you want, and then you've got the robot fist being revealed when you do that, but hey, it's an option. You get some torso movement, and if you really wanted to, you can arch the back, which is actually an ab crunch. The problem that I have with my ab crunch, which I think is a problem with a lot of this figure, because it seems to be the case with all the ones I've looked at, is that it's really tough to click back. Like, it's doable, but you have to use a lot of force. Clicking out this way is fine. Going back, you definitely have to use more force going back. A little scary the first time I did it, and then I realized that's just how it's designed. And I guess it's understandable because this ab crunch does have to hold a lot of weight, but something to be aware of. For the back area, you can angle these flaps, sort of up, down, in, out, and like so. You can move the tail. It's on a ball joint just up here. And you also have additional hinges here and here. So you only get the one ball joint, but you can flail the tail around a bit. Get pretty expressive with it. The legs, they can go forward, backward, and in and out, but for the line mode, I'm just going to leave them here because it like breaks this up and it already looks pretty weird back here. You also get rotation. And what's cool about the thigh rotation is that it's ratcheted. It seems unnecessary for it to be ratcheted, but it is ratcheted. And then the knees can bend, as you see, like they're bent all the way forward here. They can bend more forward here, and you get some weird details showing up along there, but they can bend that way. And they can bend this way. They can also bend here, though I probably don't want to bend it too much because it just makes the line mode look weird. There's a ball joint for the ankle that can rotate and go up and down, and then there's also an extra hinge right up here. And this is more for the different transformations and stuff, but you can't shift that hinge forward. But for the line mode, it's better to keep it back there, I think, because that gives you a little bit more back range on the ankle, and then you can move the toes up and down, and that gives them more of a, I think it just gives them more of like a lion pawed look, rather than having it like a flat foot like that. So yeah, Galeon's pretty cool. You can get relatively expressive with it. I mean, this and the Gao machines are kind of like the weakest part of this set, and they're pretty solid on their own. There's one other quick thing to go over with Galeon, just because there's so many accessories that come with this set, but for Galeon's sake, we're just going to be looking at this. I don't know what it's called. It's some kind of dagger. I don't watch the show, I'm sorry. The only stuff I'm familiar with is stuff I've learned from watching other people's videos, but it's very nicely detailed with this translucent green blade, and this gold grip, and this little pinkish metallic-y gem thing up there. It looks pretty good, and I guess if you wanted, you can put it in Galeon's mouth, which I think that's a thing from the show. I've seen so many people do it in videos, I'm assuming it is, but that's a thing you can do. It doesn't clip in or anything, but he does hold it pretty well. Like, that's not really going to come out unless you forcibly pull on it. Well, not forcibly, but if you know, intentionally try to pull it out. Anyway, it's time to move on to size comparisons. So I think I'm going to do individual size comparisons for the different Gao machines and Galeon, because they just take up way too much space if I put them all out here. So starting with Galeon, since that's the one we've got on camera right now, there is Galeon with the standard deluxe squad, and I feel like it's probably not the best angle, but here you can see he's pretty big in his lion mode. Not massive, but way bigger than the deluxe, obviously. For the heck of it, here he is with a Masterpiece Carbot, in this case G2 Sideswipe, so you can see how big Galeon is in lion mode. Well, it's Galeon, it's not really, you know what I mean. But you can see how big he is compared to a, let's say, average size Masterpiece figure, like one of the smaller ones, I guess. And here he is with the duck tank. Alright, let's, I guess, move backwards. So, I'll go backwards through all of the Gao machines that I've looked at. The unfortunate thing with this stand is it kind of puts Stealth Gao at a weird angle for this. But anyway, here is Stealth Gao with the standard deluxe squad, and it's very thin. but if we're going by actual wingspan, he's big. It spreads out a lot. Not necessarily a lot of mass, but this is still a pretty big jet plane vehicle thing. Here's Stealth Gao with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe, and once again, it's quite large. And also, both of these guys making a great case for how well red and black work together. And here it is with the duck tank. Now it's time for Drill Gao, and I'm going to bring this in because Drill Gao is definitely smaller, or easier to keep in frame, I guess, than Stealth Gao, so it should be a little bit easier. Here is Drill Gao with the standard deluxe squad, and it's still pretty sizable. I mean, there's a lot of, like, it's smaller in overall footprint, I guess, than Stealth Gao, but still bigger than a deluxe in most respects. Way heavier because of all that die cast on his feet, too, so there is that. Here's Drill Gao with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe, and again, great case for why red and black look great together, but bigger than Masterpiece, though this, I feel like, is a little bit more, I don't think in scale, but like a comparable overall size. Still bigger, but not significantly bigger. And again, Duck Tank. And finally, Liner Gao. Let's bring this down again, because Liner Gao is the most, let's say, conservatively sized Gao machine in the set. And again, it's just kind of a stick. It's a pretty looking stick, but it's just a stick. Anyway, here's how, just this again, arg. Here's how that stick sizes up next to the standard deluxe squad. Longer than a deluxe by a pretty decent amount, but like thinner, shorter. Still feel like this is a little heavier though, because Liner Gao does have a bit of die cast in it. So that's how Liner Gao stacks up to some deluxes. There's Liner Gao with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe, and similar story to the deluxes. And here's Liner Gao with the duck tank. Okay, now there's so much stuff to go over. Since we've got Liner Gao set up here, I'm going to grab Stealth Gao with the stand removed, and we're going to go over one of the things you can do with this, which is this adapter piece. This will slide in, and this peg here will peg in here, and these little bits here slide around these struts. So you just line that up and in, and it will peg in like so. And then there are these kind of semi-squishy bits on the insides of this adapter here that Liner Gao just kind of wedges into. It doesn't click into place, it just kind of frictions into place. But there you can have Stealth Gao carrying Liner Gao using that adapter. This is a thing, I never intend to use that, but it's a thing you can do. With that out of the way, I'm going to keep the adapter on Stealth Gao for now, but I'm going to move that off to the side, get rid of Liner Gao for now, bring back Galeon, and it is time to transform Galeon into GaiGar, because all the other accessories and stuff are for GaiGar and GaoGaiGar. So with all that done, let's get this guy transformed into a humanoid robot. And here we have GaiGar in his humanoid mode, or, well, it's just GaiGar, I guess, because Galeon is the name of the line. And I'm not entirely sure if the mouth is supposed to be closed or open. I'm just going to leave it closed, but yeah, I really like this. His head's a bit tiny in proportion to the rest of his body, and those legs are enormous. Like, they're super chunky, but I really like this. I love the aesthetic of it. The fact that there's just so much more visible white now because all that black is tucked around the backside. It changes the feeling of everything really, really well. I also really like how they used more than one tone of white for this figure. It may not come out on camera that well, but like these thigh plates, which actually feel like they might be die cast, I don't know, maybe. I definitely feel some die cast down around the feet. Yeah, the feet around here definitely feel die cast, but like these thigh plates going around are a brighter white, whereas the white inside here and at the hip is kind of like a more dull white, like almost like a slightly, ever so slightly grayish white. You also get that up here in the forearms with the bit right at the base of the inner elbow versus the actual forearm. Like you got a brighter white here and a more grayish white here. I really like that they did like a two-tone white. Liberties have been taken, but this is still clearly GaiGar. Like you've got the two-toed lion claw feet, you've got the obvious robot lion head for the chest, you've got these kind of shoulder pylons, you've got the claws around the back of the forearm. It's GaiGar's look, and the head is of course also very GaiGar. Which again, like I don't follow the show or anything, but I recognize the look. I've seen videos on a lot of figures, and like, yeah, this is unmistakably GaiGar. And like seriously, the detailing, you've got that two-tone white, which is great, but then you've got this kind of coppery bronze color for the toes, mechanical details in the shins, going up through the knees, some really interesting molding all around the body. You've got these shoulder vents, some painted detail in the shoulder and the shoulder pylons, and then I also like this kind of multi-layer effect they have going in the shoulders here, where it's like split open, flipping up the little arm flappy for when you bring the arm out, because it will get out of the way. When we go over articulation, we'll see more of that, but like bringing that up, you can see they even molded some detail on the inside of the flap. There's some little kind of anime stylings, like little triangle details and little circles in the forearms, just to kind of keep the interest, the visual interest going. And yeah, it's a lot of really nice detail. Even along the back, because back has some nice molded detail in it. Now proportionally, as I said, it's a little off. I still think this looks really cool, but he does look a little bit chunky towards the bottom, and his head is a little tiny, but it's like, you know, given everything this thing does and how the helmet's got to go over it, yeah, they had to sacrifice the proportions on GaiGar a little bit to get the proportions on GaoGaiGar looking as spectacular as they do, but I still think this looks really cool. This guy just looks neat just standing there. But let's bring him in and give that head a look. That is also unmistakably GaiGar's head. That kind of weird helmet shape and the kind of coppery, I think Evangelists refer to it as a mullet in the back. So again, the coloring is great. I love the kind of gold eyes but with like black on the outside. You've got the venting details in the front. That really bright green gem in the forehead, and even like the inside of the mullet vent is painted, which looks really, really nice. Still so many things to go over. So articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so you can get some tilt and some really decent down, some pretty okay up, though the mullet does get in the way, and of course you can look left and right. The arms can go all the way around. One thing though is when you go back, this hinge back here, which is necessary for the combination, this can kind of bump into that. It'll kind of slide out of the way on its own, but if you want to rotate it, it's also, you can just push or pull this out of the way to get it to go around, so not really a problem. The shoulder pad can wiggle around on its own, and you've got that flap that I showed before. The arms can go out almost 90 degrees. There are also bicep swivels. They're really tight on mine, at least. I don't know that I necessarily need to fix them, but at the same time, it's like, why are these so tight? These are not load-bearing for the transformation. The elbows are double jointed in this direction, so they can curl up pretty darn well. It's not all the way up, it's still pretty darn decent. And straightening the arm out. If you wanted to, you could use this joint to angle down, so you could do that, but then the wrist is also on a ball joint, so it can go up and down and forward and back and all that good stuff. It can rotate. Also, while we're here, Apparently this is a thing that he does in the show where if you wanted to, you could have the claw come up and you can do like a slashing claw attack. Supposedly this is a thing that happens in the show. I don't doubt it, but yeah, it's a thing you can do with this version of GaiGar if you wanted to. You get that nice ratcheted, like I really like the ratchets on the waist swivel. It's got lots of detents. It's really smooth. It's so nice. And then you get the ab crunch, which I mentioned before, which can go, you get 2 clicks. 1 and 2, 3. Okay, you get 3 clicks. I was wrong, 3 clicks. And it goes forward about that far, which is as far as you kind of want it to go, because then this little bit would crash into stuff. And it looks like it's not actually touching. It's like just got to be a fraction of space between these touching, because it doesn't feel like it's rubbing up against anything. So that's some really solid design. Now, this is what I was talking about before with getting the waist joint, the ab crunch, back in place. It is a bit of an ordeal just because it's so solid, but there we go. I just don't like doing that. In terms of the legs, you get skirting, so you can fold these back, you can fold these back, though because of the way this is layered, you don't really get much back with this. They can go out a ways, though these bits kind of push into the midsection, but they can go out a little bit. And then you get the front skirts that are on ball joints, so they can rotate up and down and kind of wiggle. Now the legs can go forward on a ratchet, of course, because most of the joints on this guy are ratcheted. And they can go, that's about as far as I'm willing to push it, because it's kind of really up against the front skirt. And I don't want to snap that off. Going back is, let's see, I think that's about as far as I want to risk pushing it, so not too far back, but that's because of all the junk back here. It's not so much that the ratchet itself is limited. The thigh swivels, it's just like with Galeon, where it's a ratcheted thigh swivel, so you can, the knees, they can, they were like this for Galeon, so for GaiGar, they can come down that far on the top joint, and then the lower joint can curl all the way in. It does break stuff up down here a fair bit, but you can still do it. It doesn't look terrible from the front. And then for the feet, it's pretty much the same range that we got with Galeon, where you've got this joint up here that can slide back and forth. The ball joint for the ankle itself, so you can rotate it all the way around, go down, up, get some pretty decent tilt going in either direction. And then you also get the toe that can go up that far. You can't point the toe down, but can go up quite a bit. GaiGar on his own is not worth the cost of the set, but there's a lot of really cool qualities in this guy. Like, I really wouldn't mind having GaiGar as a standalone. And he comes with a ton of accessories. So, we've got hands, we've got the knife thingy, we've got these things, which I will talk about in a little bit. Lots of stuff. Oh, and alternate shouty face. I also get one of those. So let's start by looking at the shouty face. So the way that is easiest to do this is to just pop the head off the ball joint. And it is just a ball joint, it pops right off. You can do this without removing the head, but the angles are really tricky. So I've seen people do this, and I agree, it's much easier to do it this way, where you pop the head off and then pop out the static face. That just tabs in there, and then bring in the shouty face, and that lined up. And yeah, just imagine trying to do this while it's still on the figure. So there he is, shouting, which, as I understand it, is fairly normal for this guy. So there he is shouting. As for the alternate hands, you've got fists that have a opening so that you can put the dagger or whatever it is in there, and you've got splayed open hands. And these are really easy to swap out because everything's just on a ball joint. So you just pop the fists off the ball joint, pop the new hands on the ball joint, and there you go. You can get pretty darn expressive with GaiGar, and he is pretty fun to pose. You definitely have to be mindful of some of the skirting and stuff like that, but like, he is pretty darn solid. The ankle ball joints, I will say, they're not loose, but they aren't as sturdy as they probably should be for all the weight that you get with the rest of this guy. So like, he can kind of lean forward a bit, and that can cause things to shift and cause more leaning. I mean, he is, like, when you find that balance, he is stable. All right, I'm gonna give him his regular fists back 1 second, because of course there's still more we can do with GaiGar. So we can bring in Stealth Gao with the adapter still in place, and the way this works is you want to have Stealth Gao pointing up, and these little clippy bits on the sides here will go into these slots on GaiGar's back. So just line that up. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing. And push that in, and now GaiGar is wearing Stealth Gao as a backpack. And that's a thing from the show that you can do. It does make him a little back heavy. I mean, he'll still stand. You can just balance him to compensate for it, but if you need to, you can use the stand here, and there's actually a little hole built into that adapter. So you can slide the stand into that, and that will make sure that GaiGar does not fall over while you've got Stealth Gao on his back. In addition to that, there is also Drill Gao, which we can split apart. The thing that holds it together are these two kind of alternating clip things on the inside here. They just kind of, they line up and push together, and that holds everything in place. So separate that, and then these will actually fold in to clean up those bits. Take Drill Gao and split apart. Then there's this little bit here, it's actually a button. You push that and it lets you pull out the feet. It is parts forming, and it is a shame that if you want to display GaiGar like this, you need to, you know, pull this stuff out, but I think there's a very good reason for this. Also, there's a lot of nice molded detail on the inside of this bit here. But anyway, with that out of the way, we can bring in these bits, these little adapter pieces. So you want to pop this piece off, which is a little tricky. Open this up. Now, bring in GaiGar. We're gonna pop Stealth Gao off. We'll bring him back, just so that I have more room to figure all this stuff out. So, okay, these bits, you want this kind of lip piece facing backwards, and that slides over the arm. This section here will go around these bits for the claw. And this piece comes over top and pegs in place. Then this piece comes in and goes over this on the inside, and this essentially keeps this locked together. And then bring in Drill Gao, and this will attach pretty much the same way that the feet were attached. And now he's got a drill arm. Now this is why I believe they do the parts forming on the feet, because these feet are heavy. There's a lot of die cast in these larger bits, and with all of that weight removed, it makes it way less heavy for GaiGar to have to hold up these drills, because they're light enough. It doesn't have that problem that the Soul Jigoken version has, where the drills are so heavy he can't actually hold them. So I think that's actually a really clever way to kind of get around that. Yeah, it does involve parts forming, but it works. And back in Stealth Gao, we're going to reattach this. And here we've got, I think this is called SD GaiGar, I think, where he's got the drills and Stealth Gao on his back. And this is kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. I don't necessarily enjoy the fact that it requires a bunch of parts forming. Well, not a bunch, but like, you know, you've got these bits hanging off to the side. You've got to use a special adapter to get Stealth Gao on there. So there's no other way to attach Stealth Gao, but I do think it's cool. And to take off the stand, the way that you've got this weight from the drills and the weight from Stealth Gao on there, it does actually, it works pretty well. It's just pretty stable like this. You don't actually need the stand. I mean, it's not bad to have it just in case, but you don't really need it like this. The only downside to this is because of these big engine pods back here, you can't really rotate the shoulders forward that much. Like, this is about as far forward as they can go. I kind of wish you could do more with it with Stealth Gao attached. I think GaiGar with the drill arms is cool. I think GaiGar with the drill arms and the stealth wing jetpack thing is even cooler because it's so ridiculous. Alright, let me get all this stuff off of him. Oh, and to remove the Drill Gao bits from the arms, you just push that button again and slide right off. Now let's see how he stacks up with everyone else. Here he is with the standard deluxe squad, and yeah, GaiGar's pretty tall once he's bipedal. Not complaining. Here he is with Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe, so you can see how he towers over a Masterpiece Carbot. Speaking of Masterpiece, let's bring a few more Masterpiece papers out here for comparisons. So here he is with Masterpiece Soundwave. Here he is with, I've got to pull back just a little bit more. Here he is with basically Masterpiece Optimus Prime. This is the Magic Squared version of Masterpiece Prime, but this is basically MP10/MP44 height. And here he is with Masterpiece Megatron, though this is not actually Masterpiece Megatron. This is the recent reissue of the knockoff of MP36, but same exact dimensions. And here he is with the Duck Tank. Alright, as we head into what I believe is dubbed Final Fusion, I have one more accessory to look at, which is this translucent green key thing, which I think is necessary for Final Fusion. I don't know. Like I said, I don't watch the show, but it's a nice translucent shade of green. There's some nice molding throughout. You can kind of feel the texture on the underside of the key here, too. It doesn't do anything, I think. It's just a display piece, but there's that. Alright, let's get this party started. And at long last, here we have Pose Plus Metals version of GaoGaiGar. I think the transformation on this guy is actually pretty neat. I like how, well, I'll get into it more in a little bit, but like I like the stuff that like Liner Gao does and how a lot of this other stuff comes together. It holds together really solidly and it affords a lot of articulation and it looks so cool. The proportions on this guy are great. Like the thicker legs for GaiGar make so much more sense when you're looking at GaoGaiGar here. And the smaller head for GaiGar makes more sense when you've got the helmet on because, yeah, his head in this particular design is a little bit on the small side, I suppose, but like it's more of a anime super robot, smaller than the rest of the body kind of thing. Like the head being slightly too small makes the rest of the bulky body look even bulkier. It's still identifiable as GaoGaiGar, but it's like so much more everything. They really pushed the fine details of doing their own thing with this design. Still very recognizable with the drill knees, the train shoulders, the big lion chest, the big, very distinct head, the V shape, the wings and all that. But like they did so much to it that's really, really cool. Now in terms of that transformation, it can be a little tricky getting GaiGar's legs into Drill Gao because you have to do kind of very specific alignment to get things to slide up into place and then lock in place, but not a problem at all. It's just, you know, you gotta know what you're doing, basically. I think it's really interesting how Stealth Gao changes and ends up like expanding to kind of further dramatize how big those wings can get. And with the wings pulled out all the way, now you get this added bit of ratcheted articulation. You can also move this bit up and down. I prefer to leave it up because it gives these bits, the arms, GaiGar's arms back here, a little more clearance. I've seen people transform this a couple of different ways with the arms rotated the other way or left, like rotated this way. I don't know which one's right. I never actually looked at the directions for this set. I've just kind of gone by memory from watching a ton of videos on this thing. But the reason I've done it this way is because if you spin the arms the other way, they can and do impede the waist swivel. And now Liner Gao. Liner Gao is just a stick. He's not very interesting as a Gao machine, but like that transformation affords some really interesting things. I like how it actually pulls apart and then these entire sections flip around. In particular, the reason why I think that's really cool is because it actually changes what looks to be the bulk of the train bits. Because if you push these spring-loaded bits back in, you can see what I'm talking about here, how the default Liner Gao proportions are like this kind of compacted shape here. But when these things rotate around, they don't line up where they used to be, so they're slightly off center, which brings them up more. This panel comes out and bulks that out, and then this bit pops up to kind of keep that line going, so it makes Liner Gao look bulkier in the combine mode. And that's a really clever trick. Like a really clever trick. Oh, almost forgot, transformation's not done yet. There we go. I'm sure somebody was saying something. But yeah, this just looks amazing. As I've said, I really like GaoGaiGar's design, but like this design in particular, where everything's even more angular and there's more greebly detail everywhere, it's very, very cool. And what's also really interesting is, aside from the combine mode head, there's not really new detail that's revealed here. Well, I guess, okay, the fists, the biceps, and the head, but like everything else here has pretty much been on display in one mode or another. I would have thought that something like this you'd have hidden bits everywhere, but you really don't. I love the proportions of this guy, I love the colors of this guy. That black and red all over the place, and like the legs, the hip skirts, the forearms, the back, the head, great. The gold accents for like the chest and the drill knees and little bits here and there, a little bit of silver here and there, it all looks great. You can still get a little bit of that two-tone white in the thighs there as well, but I like that they did the brighter white kind of color matching for the biceps. It kind of ties the whole look of it together. It makes it look like there's actually a bigger robot kind of underneath all of this, like armor, even though these biceps are actually inside Liner Gao. As for the detailing, which we did see in most of the other modes, lots of little bits here that are just really emphasize how premium this is. Like the die-cast feet, you've got these gunmetal details painted along the toes, and you've got some shiny metallic green in there. Bits on Drill Gao that we saw on the outside, but like there's also stuff on the inside. I really also like how Drill Gao kind of opens up and you get this kind of layered effect with the cockpit section swinging out and then the drill swinging out on top of that. I don't know why I like that effect so much, but I really do. And then again, GaiGar's thighs, and then the pelvis section, you've got both gold and silver on a really nice glossy black. A little bit of that gunmetal there, some red, some of that translucent green on the sides here, even some gold on the back of this booster thing that we saw for Galeon. And there's so much going on here. Lots of separation. Even on the biceps that were hiding inside Liner Gao, you've got some silvery, gunmetal-y details in there. And of course, with Liner Gao, you've got kind of a metallic-y bit that's been exposed here from the bulking out. And of course, you get the lion head from GaiGar with the Stealth Gao kind of lion frills attached to it, which bulk it out more and just give you more detail here. And even this has multiple colors on it, where in the frill you've got the red and the kind of coppery gold, obviously, but then there's also this little kind of gunmetal bits in these lines there. And I also like how the gold for GaiGar's lion head and the kind of brassy, coppery bronze for the frills from Stealth Gao, like, it's a very similar tone, but not quite. So it's sort of like you've got a two-tone gold going here, kind of like how you've got that two-tone white in GaiGar's thighs. It's a really neat effect. And around the back, it's Stealth Gao, so there's nothing new here that's been revealed, really. I mean, I showed these off already. I guess this could technically be new detail, but it fans out more, so it's more visible in front of the robot mode. It's, again, got those nice angles, but then because of the way it's designed, you get some really nice kind of, again, multi-layered effects here. Like this bit kind of slides into this bit, so when it's pulled out, it gives you like a staggered look. And there's so many little details to this that look amazing. Even like these little booster things in the calves. I kind of wish these were either the friction on these was a little tighter or that they kind of tabbed in place or something, but maybe it's just because like something would break if they tabbed it in, I don't know, but these can get knocked out of place pretty easily, but they're not like load bearing or anything like that, so it's really not that big a deal. And that head, I appreciate the fact that even though it's attached on this stalk on the back there, you still get some like up and down, you even get tilt and rotation. Like, you get a fair bit of movement out of this head, even though it's on a stalk, and it's a helmet on top of GaiGar's head. And for the detail, you've got that grimacing mask, the red around the front there, and I can't tell if the black is painted or if the red is like separate pieces that are over the black plastic, but it still separates out nicely either way. That kind of coppery gold for the head crest, and then also a little bit in there, that nice bright metallic green for the gem. Shape is great, even these little like swept back, very more pronounced than the usual one, I think, but like these swept back ear bits. The eyes are actually metallic gold. They're not actually GaiGar's eyes, which I'm totally fine with. I will say, when I first got this set, the eyepieces on the inside of the helmet really liked to pop off when I transformed it back and forth. Like every time I tried to take the helmet off, that eyepiece would always pop out. It didn't break, thankfully. It just, the connection just wasn't tight enough and it kept coming out. It may have been partially due to how I was trying to transform it, I don't know. All I know is it didn't hold in well. Maybe it was supposed to be glued in the factory and it just wasn't. All I know is I was able to fix it. I ended up just using a little bit of floor polish around the hole that goes over the peg on the inside of the helmet. Let that sit for a little bit and then stuck it on, and it has not come off on me since. And I'm thankful for that because this is expensive and I didn't want to have to chase someone down for a replacement part. Okay, so now that we've got all of that out of the way, oh, there are so many accessories to still go over. There is the plate that was covering up Stealth Gao, and this has no place to go. Can't really do much with it, it just goes off to the side. You also get additional hands. The hands that are attached are the hands necessary for the transformation. The other hands will not fit. And because of that, these fists look a little bit small in comparison to the rest of the body, so these can just slide out. There's this peg that pegs in there, and that's actually the tip of the turbine, so that's kind of a neat detail. But with that slid out, we can pop in one of these hands, and these hands, as you can see, are much bigger, much more proportionally fitting. They are very well articulated, and I should go over this now, but we will go over articulation in a minute. You get the rotation because of where they peg in, and then you also get some up and down movement at the wrist, which is impeded when the hand is attached, but if you slide it out a little bit, you can get more range on it, so you can kind of work around that. But my problem with these hands is the fingers can't straighten out fully because of this lip right up here. Like, as you can see, they can't straighten out, they have to go at this weird angle. So if you want to have the fingers kind of straight, they're still curled in a bit, and that kind of stinks. But anyway, the thumb, you got a ball joint at the base so you can rotate and move up and down and all around, and then there's a hinge just past that ball joint, and then another hinge up here. So the thumb has a lot of movement. The fingers have ball joints in the base, so you can spread the fingers out and rotate them if you want. You can move in and out a bit and stuff. You also have the hinge at the base, and then, oh, okay. Well, we're learning together. Never mind my gripe about the fingers being articulated, hindered by the lip in the hand. And apparently, if you just angle it a certain way, they'll straighten out just fine. This edge of the finger was getting caught, up there, so that made it feel like it wasn't going any further. But if you bring it forward and straighten it out first and then bring it back, you can straighten out the fingers. So I guess my one gripe about the fingers isn't a gripe anymore. Anyway, you also get a joint here and a joint here, so you can curl in the fingers quite a bit, and can even spread out a little bit. But yeah, you can do that and get pretty expressive. The joints on some of the knuckles are a little bit loose, but it's not that big a deal, really. I'm going to put this back in and then pop it off of the ball joint instead, because the ball joint is what that stock is attached to. The reason we do that is because there's a separate set of hands specifically for the Hell and Heaven thing, and those can plug in on the ball joint that the small fists were using, and then get to do some posability stuff here, which again we will get into more in detail in a minute, but can move these up and out of the way, angle the arms forward. I've never actually attempted this, so hopefully it'll turn out okay. And then plug this in here, and yeah, then you can pull off the Hell and Heaven pose with the arms, and it's pretty cool that it's posable enough to do that, but from what I understand, this is a thing that most GaoGaiGar figures kind of have to do, so you can do that. But it's cool. Still have more accessories, so I'm going to bring the arm up and out, and going to remove the hand, because there's yet another thing that this guy comes with. We also have this kind of glowy hand with the 5 posts, and those will plug into the 5 ports here. And it just plugs in like so. And it stands out a little bit, but I feel like it's fine. It totally works. And with that poking out, we also get 4 of these pegs. And the reason we have 4 of these pegs is because we also get this. And this lines up with this. We've got 4 holes and 4 holes, and these all plug in to the holes in the little disc thingy, and then these will plug into the holes on this other big disc thingy, and I'm sorry I'm getting my hand all in the way, but it's the best I can do. And there you can do what I believe is called the Protect Shade. So you can do that. And that also looks pretty cool. It's way too extravagant and I'm never going to do this again, but it does look cool, I'll admit that. With the... there's still a little bit more. With the... I'm just going to take the arm off because it'll be easier. with the fists still off, can rotate this piece around, because he also gets the dividing driver, which is a big screwdriver, I guess. And yeah, it's got this little rotating ring thing. Nothing else, I don't think, moves on it, except for this piece here, which is part of a connection. Up here, there's like this kind of T-bar here that slides into this. And it comes with this piece, which is meant to really kind of secure how this sits into the dividing driver. Gives you kind of a fifth plug to plug into here. It's really unnecessary because this thing plugs in here to these 4 points. It like slides into this, so when you slide this forward, it plugs in really solidly. Like, this isn't gonna come off. So you don't need this, really. But with the dividing driver attached, I'm gonna plug the forearm back in, and there you go. There is the dividing driver. That's also pretty cool. Unfortunately, the elbow on this particular forearm is a little bit, like, it's not loose, but it's just not sturdy enough to really hold up the dividing driver. That's a little bit of a shame, but it's hardly a deal breaker, especially because I don't intend to use the dividing driver, but oh well. There is one other thing that comes in the box, and that is this little adapter for the stand. This is for the stand here, obviously, but like, you plug it in, and the reason you do that is because you can do one of his other attacks where he launches his fist. So you pull off the forearm, rotate this little bit around again, and that gives you that little track that you can use, and that slides into here, and you can launch his fist. Whoosh. It's a level of silly I appreciate. Okay, now at long last we can talk about articulation, and I can get on with the rest of this video, because my god, this is taking forever. So, we've already gone over the head articulation, which is great considering everything that's going into this. The lion frills are on ball joints, so they can wiggle around and move up and down a little bit, but that's pretty much just to get out of the way of the arms. The lion mouth can still open and close. The arms themselves can potentially rotate 360, but they're not going to because of all the stuff going on back here. But you can rotate them forward and up pretty much the whole way. There's a joint back here that can move up and down. There's a joint in here that can move up and down. And then there's a joint around the bicep that can move up and down. So you get a lot of potential ways to angle these shoulders. You also get bicep rotation that can go all the way around. You get a single jointed elbow, but it's a very, very deep bend, so you can get past 90 degrees. That's pretty good considering all the bulk happening up here. And it doesn't even break the sculpt, really. Like, you can kind of see here as you rotate, this bit gets sucked into the forearm. And that's really clever design. It keeps the elbow in kind of a nice central position. It doesn't make it look too far up or down on the arm, and it fills the gaps in as you bend. Already went over the hands. The smaller fists are just on ball joints, so they can rotate and wiggle a little bit. You still get GaiGar's waist rotation and ab crunch. Don't believe you can go all the way around because of the stuff happening in the back here, but you can rotate around a fair bit. And then, as I said, you can do the ab crunch, but you can do more of the ab crunch, but I'm hesitant to do too much ab crunch because it's just so difficult to turn it back, especially with all this on, but you can do that. The legs, you can move these skirts up and out of the way, and GaiGar's front skirts are now back skirts, so you can do that. The legs in the combined mode can move pretty much all the way forward, and then pretty decent way back. There's actually more rotation than GaiGar got. They can go out the whole 90, and those ratchets are sturdy enough to hold all that weight, as you can see. You get the same ratcheted thigh swivels. The knees are a little bit less flexible because of all the stuff you've got going on around here. Like, they can still bend up here, and I think, yeah, you can still bend them a little bit in that inner joint. That's kind of a lot of knee bend for how bulky this is. That's pretty wild, actually. And then for the ankles, you've got straight on. You can do 1, 2, 3. You get about 3 clicks, and these are pretty decently ratcheted, so you can click those in and out. The ankles also move forward and back, though they don't move forward and back a lot because of just all the bulk. Also, this ankle is extremely tight with the forward and back motion for some reason, and this one is a bit more freeform, free-moving, but even then, it doesn't really, you don't get a lot. You get more when it's at an angle, because that frees up the bulk a little bit. And then you can also bend the toe up a bit. You get like one little bend, and they're straight, and then you can point the toe a lot because of, you know, Stealth Gao. So this is a very bulky, but also surprisingly posable figure. I knew going into this that this was a pretty posable figure, and that was kind of one of the big draws for me, but it's still pretty wild just how flexible this big, bulky super robot is. When I say big, he's not like, you know, massive Tobot Combiner big, but he's pretty big. Here he is with the standard deluxe squad, and yeah, as you can see, it's you get a fair bit of height added to this guy on top of GaiGar. Like, I think GaiGar's feet are about here, so you get that much height added to the base body, then you've got all this extra stuff happening along the top. Here he is with a couple more masterpieces, that being Masterpiece G2 Sideswipe and Masterpiece Soundwave. Here he is with what is basically the equivalent of MP10 or MP44. Here he is with basically the equivalent of MP36. And here he is with the duck tank. Okay. Wow. This video is... there's just so much to go over with this, you know? This set is incredible. As I said, it is the most premium thing in my collection, and it's the most premium figure I've ever handled personally. It is expensive. There's no denying that. And it's a big ask. It absolutely would have been fantastic if this did not cost as much as it does. But I will say, having this in hand with all the accessories, all of the detail, all of the die-cast bits and the engineering, and just there's so much quality and little bits here and there that went into this that I feel like I don't think it's unreasonable for what you get. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have preferred to pay like half of what I paid for this, or even less, but I don't feel like I got cheated. I do feel like what I paid for, like, I can see where the money is going. I've said this before, but like, having this set in hand, I definitely see where that money is going. In terms of bang for your buck, I feel like there's a lot of bang here. As for whether or not this is going to be worth the cost for you, that is entirely up to you. If you have the means, if you have the money, and if you really like this design or are a fan, I assume, then this is a great set. But this video has gone on way long enough, so I'm gonna stop it there. That has been my look at Pose Plus Metal GaoGaiGar. Oh, I finally get to say that and put a bow on this video. I've been wanting to do this for so long, I was afraid because it would take forever, but got it done. What do you all think of this set, or the Soul Chigo conversion, or the DX version that came out from Takara or Sonicon? Whatever your thoughts, you know, you can leave them below, as always. And I do appreciate hearing from you all. The Patreon thing is still an option if you're interested in supporting the channel. It's just one tier, it's $1, and it gets you early access to videos. It would be much appreciated, but you interacting with this video or any of my videos, that's also appreciated. But thank you all for watching. I need to drink some water because my throat is starting to dry up. You probably heard it. And remember, art is excessive, but also more than meets the eye.